You're going to do a murder. How are you going to do it? That's the fascinating part.
Before Psycho, before Rear Window, there was Strangers on a Train, Alfred Hitchcock's twisted tale of fate, murder, and chance encounters. It's the movie that defined psychological thrillers long before the term existed. Elegant on the surface, but crawling with darkness underneath. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the secrets behind the tracks, the scandals, the accidents, and the strange obsessions that made this Hitchcock classic unforgettable. So grab your ticket, because these 20 weird facts about Strangers on a Train will derail everything you thought you knew. Fact 20. The movie was based on a chilling real-life idea. The film was adapted from Patricia Highsmith's debut novel, but the idea wasn't entirely fiction. Highsmith once overheard a stranger in a bar ranting about how two people could swap murders and never be caught. The thought stuck with her for years, until it became the twisted backbone of Strangers on a Train. Hitchcock loved the concept instantly, calling it murder as an art form. But here's the creepy part. After the movie's release, police reportedly investigated a few copycat cases where people claimed to have been inspired by the film's premise. Reality, once again, started to imitate Hitchcock. Fact 19. Hitchcock's daughter played a crucial role. Patricia Hitchcock, the director's real-life daughter, played Barbara Morton, the innocent, bespectacled sister who witnesses Bruno's breakdown. But her role was more than a cameo. Hitchcock cast her deliberately to intensify one of the film's most disturbing scenes. Bruno strangling Miriam at the carnival. When Bruno sees Barbara laughing later, he imagines her face morphing into the dead woman's, a moment so psychologically disturbing that censors almost banned it. Patricia's performance made that illusion even eerier because she resembled the victim in real life. Hitchcock once said, "It's one of the few times my own blood frightened me on screen." Fact 18. The train scene almost got Hitchcock arrested. The opening train sequence, where Guy and Bruno first meet, was filmed on a moving train, but not everyone on board knew it was a movie shoot. Hitchcock's crew secretly filmed on an actual commuter train using hidden cameras and microphones. When passengers realized a camera was aimed at them, someone called the police, thinking it was government surveillance. Hitchcock had to show his film permit and apologize to the train company. But he loved the chaos, saying it gave the scene authentic tension. That clandestine realism gave the film its trademark unease. Two strangers, one conversation, and a journey toward madness. Fact 17. Bruno's actor took his role too seriously. Robert Walker, who played Bruno Antony, delivered one of Hitchcock's most chilling villains, charming, cultured, and completely deranged. But his off-screen behavior mirrored his character a bit too closely. Walker was struggling with mental health issues and alcoholism during filming, often blurring the line between performance and reality. Crew members said he would sometimes stay in character even off-set, whispering dark monologues to himself between takes. Tragically, Walker died just months after the film's release under mysterious circumstances involving medication. His haunting performance became even more unsettling. The villain who never really left the train. Fact 16. Hitchcock's obsession with feet shows up again, yes. The master of suspense had another signature quirk. In Strangers on a Train, the first thing we see are not faces but shoes. Guy's polished sports shoes, and Bruno's flashy two-tone pair walking toward each other on parallel paths. Hitchcock used this subtle detail to symbolize their fates crossing tracks. But what many don't realize is that Hitchcock personally shot that close-up himself. He didn't trust anyone else to frame it perfectly. Critics later joked that if you ever needed proof of Hitchcock's foot fixation, just look at the movie's opening. It's the most stylish walk to murder ever filmed. Fact 15. The tennis scene took over a week to film that famous tennis match where Guy plays under the scorching sun while Bruno watches from the stands. Wasn't just intense to watch, it was brutal to shoot. Hitchcock demanded total realism, filming actual matches with hundreds of extras. But the real challenge was capturing Bruno's unnerving stare among a sea of turning heads. Hitchcock ordered all the extras to follow the ball except one, Robert Walker, whose motionless gaze pierces straight through the frame. It took 7 exhausting days to synchronize every movement, but the result is unforgettable. An audience of eyes moving as one, except for evil itself, sitting perfectly still. Fact 14. The carousel finale nearly killed a stuntman. The climactic carousel crash wasn't just suspenseful, it was genuinely deadly. Hitchcock insisted on filming a real carousel spinning at an impossible speed. When it lost control during one take, the entire platform began shaking violently. Stuntmen were thrown off, and a camera operator barely escaped being crushed. A brave technician named Eddie Brophy crawled under the moving ride to pull the power lever, stopping it just in time. Hitchcock later admitted, "That man saved our lives." The chaos you see in the film's final shots isn't acting, it's real panic, captured by pure accident. Few action scenes in cinema history have been that dangerous, or that authentic. Fact 13. Hitchcock's wife secretly saved the film behind every Hitchcock masterpiece was Alma Reville, his wife, editor, and uncredited genius. During Strangers on a Train, Alma spotted a continuity error in a crucial scene where Bruno picks up Guy's cigarette lighter, a mistake that would have ruined the entire plot logic. She caught it after filming wrapped, forcing Hitchcock to reshoot the sequence. Without that fix, the lighter's reappearance in the final act wouldn't make sense. Alma's quiet intervention saved the film's coherence. Again, Hitchcock later said, "Alma is the only person I can never outsmart. Without her, the movie's entire web of deceit might have fallen off the rails." Fact 12. Censors tried to delete the murder reflection scene. One of Strangers on a Train's most famous shots shows Miriam's murder reflected in her fallen glasses, a disturbing image of elegance and horror combined. But the censors weren't impressed. The Production Code Administration called it morbid and indecent and demanded Hitchcock remove it. He refused, arguing that it wasn't gory, it was poetic. To win approval, he trimmed only a few seconds, but the full effect remained. Today, it's considered one of the greatest visual metaphors in film history. Hitchcock turned murder into art. Fact 11. The lighter became a symbol of guilt. The cigarette lighter engraved with Guy's initials isn't just a prop. It's the film's moral compass. Hitchcock used it as a visual thread connecting every lie, every obsession, and every betrayal. In one scene, Bruno fondles it like a trophy. In another, Guy's reflection appears warped inside its metal surface. Hitchcock designed it to catch light in specific ways, so it would always draw the viewer's eye, even subconsciously. It wasn't just a clue, it was guilt made tangible. When Bruno drops it at the end, it isn't just a plot twist, it's sin literally slipping through his fingers. And believe it or not, things are about to get way darker. The next facts reveal Hitchcock's cruel psychological tricks on set, an FBI investigation, and how Strangers on a Train almost became a forbidden film. Fact 10. Hitchcock tormented his actors for real reactions. Hitchcock had a reputation for psychological manipulation, and Strangers on a Train was no exception. During tense scenes, he deliberately gave vague directions or false instructions just to provoke discomfort. He once told Farley Granger, Guy Haines, that Bruno might be standing behind you, even when he wasn't, just to catch genuine fear in his eyes. For Robert Walker, he reversed the method. He complimented his performance so excessively that Walker began to doubt himself. Hitchcock believed true suspense wasn't acted, it was felt. He wanted his cast slightly paranoid, and by the end of filming, they were. Fact 9. The FBI monitored the movie's production. During the early 1950s, America was deep in the Red Scare, and Hollywood was under government watch. When Hitchcock submitted Strangers on a Train for studio approval, FBI agents reportedly flagged it for subversive themes. They believed the story of two men conspiring to exchange crimes might secretly symbolize political collusion. Hitchcock, amused but cautious, agreed to small script changes to defuse the paranoia. Ironically, the film's theme of hidden guilt mirrored the atmosphere of the time. Everyone suspected, everyone watched. It was the perfect thriller born out of real-world fear. Fact 8. The sound design was decades ahead of its time. Hitchcock was obsessed with sound, especially silence. In Strangers on a Train, every mechanical noise was layered intentionally. The clatter of the train wheels, the squeak of the carousel, the echo of footsteps on tile. But here's the genius twist. In key moments, he removed ambient sound entirely, creating a vacuum that made audiences unconsciously hold their breath. This technique was so advanced that modern sound designers still study it. Hitchcock didn't just direct pictures, he composed fear. You didn't just watch Strangers on a Train, you heard its tension pulse through the speakers. Fact 7. The film nearly got a different ending. MGM executives wanted a moral wrap-up. Guy and Bruno's crimes exposed, justice served, everything tied neatly in a bow. Hitchcock refused. He envisioned the ending as sudden, ironic, and chaotic. The carousel crash, and Bruno's hand clutching the lighter, fading into stillness. He argued that evil doesn't end with speeches. It ends abruptly without warning. The studio fought back, but Hitchcock won, as always. That ambiguous final shot, Bruno dying with a smirk, became the blueprint for thrillers that let audiences draw their own conclusions. It was rebellion disguised as storytelling. Fact 6. Hitchcock's cameo carries a hidden message. Every Hitchcock fan knows he loved appearing briefly in his own films, but his cameo in Strangers on a Train was particularly sly. He's seen boarding the train while carrying a double bass case, a subtle nod to the movie's theme of duality and hidden motives. But what most fans don't know is that Hitchcock originally filmed 2 cameos. In one unused take, he exits the train instead of entering, symbolizing the choice between innocence and guilt. He later decided that entering felt more dangerous. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it's Hitchcock telling you he's part of the crime too. Fact 5. Hitchcock drew. Inspiration from a real murder case. Years before Strangers on a Train, Hitchcock was fascinated by the 1924 Leopold and Loeb case. 2 wealthy students who killed a boy just to prove they could commit the perfect crime. That story obsessed him for decades and heavily influenced both this film and his earlier movie Rope. The idea that murder could be a game of intellect haunted him, and Strangers on a Train became his ultimate expression of that theme. He once said, "The scariest monsters are the ones who think their logic is flawless." Bruno wasn't just a villain, he was the echo of a real-world arrogance that turned morality into math. Fact 4. The film's cinematography was a masterclass in duality. Cinematographer Robert Burks created a visual code of opposites: bright daylight versus heavy shadows, left and right framing, Guy and Bruno always mirroring each other's movements. Even the train tracks split and merge repeatedly in the background, a silent symbol of 2 lives intertwining. Hitchcock supervised every reflection and angle, calling it geometry of guilt. He wanted the audience to feel visually trapped, like they couldn't escape the crossing lines of fate. Every frame was a riddle, and every shadow whispered that 2 strangers could be one and the same. Fact 3. A deleted scene revealed Bruno's disturbing childhood. Hitchcock originally filmed a short flashback showing Bruno as a child, tormenting animals and manipulating his parents. Test audiences found it too dark, even for a Hitchcock film, so he cut it entirely. But traces of that psychology remained. The way Bruno speaks to his mother in the final cut, polite yet mocking, hints at that toxic upbringing. Hitchcock later regretted deleting the scene, saying, "We showed the monster's origins, but sometimes mystery is scarier." The footage was reportedly destroyed by the studio, making it one of Hitchcock's most famous lost moments. Fact 2. The carnival set was a giant optical illusion. The carnival sequence, including the famous strangulation scene, wasn't filmed at a real fairground. Instead, Hitchcock's team built an enormous set on the Warner Brothers backlot, complete with working rides, food stands, and fake neon lights. To create the illusion of a vast crowd, they used giant mirrors and layered matte paintings in the background. The reflection shots were so convincing that most viewers assumed it was all shot on location. Hitchcock called it cinema as sleight of hand, a trick of scale that fooled everyone. Even modern filmmakers study that sequence as a blueprint for practical visual deception. Fact 1. Strangers on a Train was almost lost forever. For years, legal disputes over rights ownership kept the film buried. After Hitchcock's death, Strangers on a Train was among several of his classics withheld from circulation due to complex studio agreements and estate battles. For nearly 2 decades, it was unavailable to the public, a ghost in film history. When it was finally restored in the 1980s, critics rediscovered its brilliance and crowned it one of Hitchcock's 5 greatest works. The irony? A movie about hidden guilt ended up being hidden itself. Like Bruno's plan, it almost disappeared beneath its own deception, but suspense never dies. Strangers on a Train wasn't just a thriller, it was a mirror of obsession, control, and the fragile line between innocence and guilt. Hitchcock built an entire world out of parallel lines and moral crossroads. Even today, every suspense film owes a piece of its DNA to that meeting on the train, because once you've looked into Bruno's eyes, you never travel the same way again.